This week on Snark Squad Pod, we're joined by Nick Jenkins of the podcast Real Bad to talk about the 2018 film The Meg. Welcome back to Snark Squad Pod. I am your host, Marines, and with me as always is my co-host.
Hello, I'm Nicole Sweeney.
I'm Nick Jenkins. Hi, everybody, and I am from the podcast Real Bad, where we talk about real bad movies and why they want to hurt us. I'm also obsessed with filmmaking and am a producer, director in my own right, and I am overjoyed to be here talking about this film I would not have seen had it not been for Nicole's late night text like, hey, you want to go see The Meg? I guess I'm going to go see The Meg.
I should explain that we are watching this because of a fundraising thing that we did for BookNet Fest. So BookNet Fest was running an Indiegogo campaign in order to help with the cost of the event. And one of the perks was the ability to choose a topic for the Snark Squad Pod. And a BookNet Fest supporter named Nicole picked this perk, and I reached out to her and she wrote me a really nice email, and she said basically that she wanted us to watch The Meg because somebody needs to get to the bottom of why a B movie about a dinosaur shark made $44 million in its first weekend. So that's why we're here, I guess.
But before we get to that, we should do a quick plot synopsis, which falls to me. I mean, like that's basically it. Like, she did it in the email, right? Like, it's a movie about a dinosaur shark. Rainn Wilson plays a super rich guy who funds this research center. And I don't know why I led with Rainn Wilson. He is not at all the most.
I was wondering. Wow, she's starting with Rainn Wilson. Okay.
He was the person who I was most confused to see there. Anyway.
That's fair.
It's why I don't know why you're here in this movie. But anyway, I guess Jason Statham is the first of the main characters that we meet. He rescues people. He does deep sea rescues. That's his jam. In a sort of prologue to the movie, he has a rescue mission gone wrong and a couple people die. He's very traumatized by it. He gets out of the deep diving rescue mission game. 5 years later, Rainn Wilson's super rich. He's goes to see his cool new research center as his team is about to do this they're about to dive deeper than we previously believed it was possible to go on the ocean floor.
Yes, according to this movie.
Yeah, according to this movie, the ocean is deeper than we think it is. Whatever. Right. There's all sorts of watching this movie. I was I wish we'd have had Sari or a science person present. Yes. But that I feel then that would have been a whole other podcast. But anyway, so they go on this mission. It goes poorly, and the people who are doing this initial search get stranded, basically. And so Jason Statham gets roped back in. He doesn't want to go back in, but one of the people who are stranded is his ex-wife, and he's like, damn, okay, I gotta go. So he goes back in, and it turns out that the thing that got them stranded was a shark that was previously believed to be extinct. And the whole rest of the movie is just this whole back and forth of them trying to not get killed by the shark or have anybody else get killed by the shark, but some people do indeed get killed by the shark. And I don't know, eventually most of the people that we care about who are not assholes, that we quote in air quotes care about, who are not assholes live, and some other people die, and presumably the sharks are dead. The end.
Okay, we're doing this damn thing. Yep. Nick, did you like it?
Well, as we were getting up to leave, I told Nicole, I don't really say that I liked it or didn't like it. There were things about it I liked, and there were things about it I didn't like. And it's all this sort of dull hum in my head. It wasn't a bad experience. I expected it to be a bad experience, and it wasn't. It was at times a frustrating experience. There's some very simple characterization stuff going on in this film.
Yup.
There's some very convenient plot stuff going on in the film. And, I think it's interesting, too, when you spend... This movie had a budget of $130 million. Actually, we'll get into a little bit more of that budget in a bit, but $130 million for what is ostensibly a B movie. This is a B movie script. like, this is not, it surprises me that like the thing about a B movie that makes a B movie charming to me is the fact that it's low budget and you're trying to tell this big story with no money. That makes it fun and it makes it charming. And here you have all the tools in the world, and basically it amounts to me just being like, I don't really care about anything. So I don't know if that's a good answer or not. I didn't like it. I didn't dislike it.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
I liked people that were in it.
It's true.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I think he should have been a star 2 decades ago or a decade ago. Well, no, 3 decades ago. I like Jason Statham. There is something about the guy I like. I think he looks the tough guy part. He is the closest thing I think we have to an Arnold Schwarzenegger, someone who's not a really good actor, but is getting by on sort of a machismo and charm. And I feel that way about him. So I liked him.
Question mark. Nicole?
I don't, more or less the same. Like, I don't know. I went into this movie expecting to deeply hate it. And so it's worth saying that the fact that I didn't hate it inherently, like, it exceeded my expectations, automatically, because the bar that it had to trip over basically was so low. I
had that same experience this weekend with the Solo movie.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, well, it was fine. I don't know. So yeah, this movie was fine. The dialogue was just so bad.
Oh, God.
And like, that was very frustrating because like the B movie point, like the fact that it's a like B movie script, but with like a, proper budget is part of what is like perplexing about what's happening with this movie, in that you can have this sort of nonsensical plot, but like something has to be better than like something in it has to be like particularly strong and good, and nothing ever really quite was, but also it wasn't terrible. So I don't know. I didn't like it. I didn't hate it.
I would argue also that or something needs to go completely off the rails.
Right.
And it needs to be a crazy movie.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
I too expected it to be worse. So it was incredibly confusing to sit there, and I was just looking at it like, you're not as bad as I thought you were going to be. You're not good. But I think the thing that it did was
it's like going on a blind date.
Like, I wouldn't go on a second date, but this wasn't horrible.
Yeah. I don't regret this blind date.
I just think it took itself a little bit too seriously. Yes. I didn't know what this movie was about, but I expected to see Jason Statham like punching sharks is basically what I expected. And the fact that it was a little more serious than that, and I don't know, it didn't do a ton with the like characterizations, and the plot wasn't all there, but there was like, everybody was trying really hard.
Yeah.
And so it was very confusing. I don't know. I'm more confused than anything else at what the intention was here. What were they trying to do? I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I mean, it not as bad as I thought it would be.
I mean, I think
exceeds
they were
expectations. Right.
Yeah, it definitely exceeded my expectations because I didn't really have any. Mm-hmm. So great. And I would never watch this again.
Would never have chosen to watch it.
No, never. Not even if it was free streaming, and not out of any, not out of any negativity. It's just like, it's just not something I would watch.
Yes, nothing about like what this movie was trying to do on any level is something that like any version of this movie, like maybe it didn't need to take itself as seriously as it did, or whatever. Like the more if it were on a lower budget, more proper B movie, like there is no version of this movie that is something that I would be drawn to. So like there's that.
No, it's like even the cast itself. Like, yes, Jason Statham is a movie star, but beyond that, there's nothing really making me go, I love that person and everything they're in.
Right.
I should at least watch this for them. I know some of the people.
He's drawn to a lot of movies that are just not my jam.
Yeah.
Like the kinds of roles that Jason Statham is cast in, I'm sure he's fine. He was perfectly charming and serviceable in this movie. yes, but also I just don't care. Like, I don't know. I mean, you're not in anything that I care about.
I wonder if part of this has to do. So the question was posed, right? The question is, why did this film make $40 million? And you brought me on to try to answer this.
That's correct.
The short answer is, I don't know, man. I don't know who this movie is for. I don't know why they went to see it. But there's a two-pronged answer here that I want to talk about. The first prong is what we're talking about now, which is like, I don't know who this movie is for. Who goes to see a giant shark movie? It's not something, and I'm not saying you shouldn't want to go see a giant shark movie. I just don't know people who do.
Yes.
Like, it's just not part of it was a big thing in the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s with Deep Blue Sea. But it's not really anymore. And maybe they were just trying to get back to that. And maybe a lot of people do want to go see a giant shark movie. The other side of that is at $130 million, the budget has been reported many different ways. Officially from Warner Brothers, it's 130, but there are reports of it going quite a bit over budget, which means it needs to crack 400 million to break even with everything. So that's another problem. Like, you're going to spend 130 allegedly on a giant shark movie that you don't know if there's a market for. It's confusing to me. Why? More confusing than the $40 million worth of people who went to go see it. I am confused by the people who thought this would be a giant blockbuster that you could spend $130 million on.
Yes.
So
I hadn't thought about that, but yes.
40 million was in its opening weekend. So I just looked this up, and I will tell you why in a little bit because I have some confessions to make, but we'll get there. So while researching, I just passed 500 million worldwide. So
Okay.
So clearly I shouldn't be an executive because I would take a pass on this.
It made 152.8 million in China. So
Right. Yep. Okay.
And it stars Li Bing Bing.
Yep,
So
yep,
that may have had something to do with it. So yeah, it made its money back.
Yes.
The dinosaur shark.
This is
international market. Like that's
Yep.
did not even think about
Nope.
it. But now that you're saying that, I'm like, yep. I take back all of my like prior confusion. It like makes a fuck ton more sense now.
I feel like an idiot because that is an obvious thing.
Yeah, and like there were a number of things about the casting and like the locations and stuff. Like all of the land locations in the movie are in
Right.
Asia. So like, yeah, okay. Yep.
So I will tell you why I was not looking that information up while you were talking, Nick. I was looking up Jason Statham because two things. One, I have
Fast
to confess
and the Furious.
Yes. You were like, who likes Jason Statham movies? And I'm like, well, I am highly invested in all of the Fast and the Furious movies. I've watched The Transporter more times than I should confess, but even worse, I've watched Death Race multiple times.
I've also watched Death Race a few times.
I don't even know what Death Race is.
Yeah.
Oh, Nicole.
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to have to make you watch that, but I think we're going to have to make you watch that. So yeah, I kind of find him charming, and I don't think that this would have been... I wouldn't have watched it in theater for sure. I may have been curious if it was like on TV, but yeah, there was no version of this that I would have been interested in. My other confession is that I haven't even watched Jaws from start to finish. It's something that I always catch pieces of, but I like no interest in even watching it. So this is not my cup of tea. It's not in my wheelhouse.
Nicole, have you seen Jaws?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Jaws is one of those movies for me that like it blew my mind at how good it was because I saw it very late. I didn't see it until I was in my 20s. And when I saw it, I was not expecting it to be a really good thriller. Nor was I expecting it to be really funny. And it is both of those things. And so it just sort of opened my mind to how further along we were with blockbuster filmmaking at that time than I thought we were. I thought that Star Wars sort of birthed that, but I was incorrect. It was actually a couple things before that. And Jaws being one of them.
So bringing up Jaws, this whole movie felt honestly like a setup for a theme park ride. The reason that Jaws connected this in my mind, when we were talking about the Star Wars movies, I mentioned that like the theme music to me, I don't know, like it makes me think of Disneyland. Like that's like where my head goes. And this is just a consequence of growing up in Southern California, I guess. Like I rode Jaws not Jaws the ride. It's but the studio tour. I did the studio tour, the backlot tour at Universal Studios like countless times before I ever saw Jaws the movie. You know, so like I saw like that was the thing that was like, oh, maybe I should go see this movie. That like so I feel like I'm coming any movie that has like theme park potential. I'm probably having the theme park experience first. So all of that out there, watching this movie felt a lot like a Universal Studios type ride setup. Like I was like, yeah, I could see this moment being like a Back to the Future style. I forget the like flight simulator type thing. Like you could do that. Like you're like diving in the sea. Actual like plot. I don't know who even knows. But I was like, yeah, this is like really great setup for a theme park ride.
Well, interestingly, because you bring that up, it makes me think of as I was watching this film, I just kept thinking of other films. Like the first third of it is, I don't want to say a ripoff, but it's close to a movie that I really want to talk about with you guys on here called The Abyss. It's like all of the little points are there. There's a group of people down below. A rescue is coming for them. Or no, they have to go rescue something else and blah, 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 blah. But a lot of it happens. There's an estranged husband and wife who have to work together and everything. So there's a lot there. Then the end of the film is basically Jaws. Like it's all the people in the ocean, the little kid going off into the ocean, the little dog named Pippin. There was a dog named Pippet in Jaws that gets eaten. So it's like it felt too much like these other movies most of the time. And that kept pulling me out quite a bit. Also, I don't know if this makes sense to anyone else, but it makes sense to me. And part of, I think, why films like this don't work for me as well is because with something like Jaws, there was a sense of, oh, how are they going to do that? How are they going to pull that off? And it was a magic trick, right? Like it was the ability for the magicians of editors and sound designers and everything to create something and fool you into thinking you were seeing what you were seeing. And now, you know, everything is done in computers. And I don't knock computer generated stuff, especially when it comes to safety, but there's no real wow factor for me. And even some of the times where I noticed other people in the audience were jumping, I wasn't, because I was like, yeah, a giant computer jumped out. But again, that may be just me and how I process these things.
I think that one of the things, as I understand Jaws, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the like pieces of like pop culture trivia that I've picked up about this movie is that you don't see the shark for a while, right? Like it's
Correct.
like the menace of the thing is like the big buildup. And I feel like in this, it was just like shark, 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 shark all the time. And it got to a point where it was just like, yeah, okay, that's a really big computer like CGI shark. Like it lost some of the menace and the thrill because it was so in your face. Like I just I don't know. There was something there that wasn't as like thrillery or scary. It lost some of that for me in the storytelling.
I mean, I know one of the parts where Nicole squirmed was when the ex-wife got stabbed.
Yeah.
Like,
Not into stabbing.
But an actual practical effect and with an actor, you know, like it's, or when the guy was told to lean his head in.
Yeah.
There's an actor and a prop.
Right.
And all of us were like, no, you don't do that.
No, that's the moment where the tension
Bad
of like,
humans.
I thought the dead shark was going to come to life because of the tension there.
Yep.
So, but yeah, those are really great examples because that is away from like the massive shark on the screen. Those were probably two of the more like tense moments. And like you said, it was just actor prop.
Yeah.
So I think it relied too heavily on just like that. Oh, did you see that really big shark we made? Like, yeah, dude, I did. Thanks. thanks.
We make giant sharks that fly through New York now, basically, for every Avengers film. Like it's not something we haven't seen. There were some good uses of it, I thought. Like I really liked when you saw the person on the paddleboard and the shape swam under them.
Yeah.
Like that was cool. But we've seen it all now, so I don't know if it's all that shocking to see it again.
That's really interesting because I definitely startle very easily. I don't really know to what degree that is or isn't a factor in my aversion to, I don't know, a movie like this. I was trying to figure that out while watching this because I recently had a conversation with some friends about how much I love haunted houses. And like the reason that I enjoy that experience of being startled because it's an immersive theater experience. It's theater. Like that's what it is. It's a play. It's a giant play that you're walking through. And like that for me is what I enjoy about it. And like I was trying to figure out what exactly wasn't, like why something like this doesn't land for me in the same way. Cause like obviously there's tons of things in haunted houses that like are excessive and overdone in ways that, like don't seem plausible. But I think like this the computer generated point is not something that I had considered, but like hearing you describe it in this way, I'm like, oh, that's it. That's the thing. The tension needs to be there beyond just the animation. That is not enough. That cannot be the sole source of tension.
Right. And since we have characters that none of us really care about, we don't dislike them except maybe for Rainn Wilson's character at times. We don't really like none of us. I guess Ruby Rose. There were times I was worried for Ruby Rose. But beyond that, like the tension is, seeing the thing coming and them trying to get her out of the water because we don't want that character to die. Most of these characters are so paper thin that there's not a lot to be worried about their safety. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When they had the full out, like the dad died, and they had like the full, like basically like funeral scene. I was like, really? We're going there? Like just because they expected us to care enough to be emotional at that point. And then I was like, I'm really sorry he's dead, but I really don't care.
I was really nervous that they were segueing that into like, that was going to be the moment that she and Jason Statham like hooked up. I was like, that when he came in and she's like at her vigil for her father, I was like cringing.
No, do not. Yeah.
Again, not as bad. Exceeded expectations. I don't know that I give it points for that, but like,
so no points deducted.
Right. Yeah. I literally wrote in my notes in the dark while I was on this theater by myself. As we were being introduced to all of these female actresses, I was like, well, which of these women is going to be for the unnecessary sex scene? Literally wrote it down. Like I couldn't figure out which one they were leaning to. So when it didn't happen, I was like, oh, okay.
No,
so I was
points
expecting
deducted.
Right.
Something we do on Real Bad is we offer examples of how to fix it. Mm-hmm. And I don't really have a holistic way to fix this because I don't think it's broken necessarily. I just, but one of the things, as Nicole knows for sure, I get really grouchy and angry about needless romantic plot lines. Mm-hmm. And this had one of them. It was like, wouldn't it have been better if they were just both super talented people and maybe kept trying to one up each other and then became a team? What's wrong with that? Why did it need to be a romance? A romance that frankly it did not have any chemistry.
No.
So things like that, I think, could elevate this.
He had like a really good relationship with her kid. But like, with her, unclear.
Yeah. And I mean, there were moments like, her seeing him naked was funny, and it was cute. And then her
going back to peep through the window, I did not appreciate. That was not necessary.
No, it was
done
unnecessary.
Without that.
The little hand signal they had for just a little bit, like they did it twice and then it never came back. Like, there were a few things like that. Like her father never said that he loved her. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, they're going to weave this into his death, and they didn't.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. Yes. Like the thing is, you can have all of the emotional like through lines that they're trying to put. like they introduced these different emotional attachments in theory as like these are the hooks, like these are why these characters are doing, like this is why Jason Statham is like so hardcore about trying to save her in particular, whatever, like, but none of that, like they were just, those relationships were just there to serve those particular plot beats that like them coming back for each other, whatever, because they are romantically interested in each other. But like they didn't do anything to otherwise actually demonstrate romantic interest. So like I don't. It's one of those things where you could do that basic premise of like they're gonna go out of their way for each other specifically because they're romantically interested. I don't object to that like on its face, but they didn't actually make them believably romantically interested in each other outside of those moments where it served some plot function. And like, so either you develop that relationship properly or, like Nick said, get rid of it entirely.
There were a few of those like moments where it was just like, where is this coming from? One is when they were like, it's Lori, she's down there. I'm like, who the F is Lori? You know, why am I supposed to know? And then later they're like, oh, his ex-wife. But the only thing it counted for was giving him a reason to get on the ship. And that was it. And then the other moment was during when the father was dying and he's like, I'm sorry I was so hard on you. And I'm like, where's that coming from? They seem to have a perfectly lovely relationship.
They do.
And then he's just like apologizing to her or whatnot. But it's just for that specific moment of trying to pull those feelings for you, even though there's no setup and there's no payoff after it. So just a lot of weird shortcut, like here's a character thing that they just like landed in the middle of this movie that was really about showing us a giant shark. So
well, and even the filmmaking, John Turteltaub, who directed this, has done some really wonderful work. He did National Treasure. I think he did both of them. And like a lot of people love those movies and they're, and I find them adorable and that's fine. But in here, there were a lot of filmmaking decisions that it's like, not only does this not really serve the plot overall, why is it here? Like, why? I'm thinking of after they cut from him failing to rescue two people at the beginning, they cut to these like beautiful slow motion, epically scored helicopter shots arriving somewhere. We don't know where he's going. We just see epic shots of a helicopter. And then when he does arrive, it looks like an oil rig. It's nothing like, later he gets introduced to how awesome this place is. But that ride in, it's like, why don't we just have him landing? We could just we cut to helicopter landing on the oil rig. And then we go in and then we get the reveal and we get the slow motion and the cool, the underwater lab and everything. So things like that it's like, why is this here? It seems like we're just wasting time to get where we're going.
Mm-hmm. If you want another place where I expected to deduct points and I did not. As I was watching Jason Statham, I don't know. I know that he's 50. He's in his 50s. He's 51 now. So I was watching him play along.
That man has taken care of himself.
Yes, he has. Yes. Like in no way. Yeah, he looks great. But I was watching him play alongside Lee Bing-bing, and I was like, I hate that trope of like the older man in Hollywood like playing alongside like the beautiful young girl, and then having the romance. But then I looked her up, and she's 45.
What the
so
fuck?
They both
look amazing.
Yes.
What the hell?
She's 45 and he's 51, and just beautiful
good for
people.
Both of them.
Yes. So good for both of them. What the hell?
It's funny because like her father, I kept thinking they had sprayed gray on his beard because I was like, is he old enough to be her father? I can't judge age past like 25 apparently. I knew that Statham was a fair amount older than me, and every time I see him in a movie, I'm like, "What are you eating?
What are you doing? What are you doing? Talk to me. Talk to me about what you've done."
I mean, he was a diver before he became an actor. I think I don't know if he was quite Olympic level, but he was a serious high level diver where he represented England in some of the like world games and stuff.
Interesting.
So he's, he knows his way around a gym and a pool, and probably around nutrition as well.
Sure. All things I do not know my way around.
Yeah, I'm lost among all of those things. But yeah, that's fascinating. So they were an age-appropriate couple.
They were indeed.
All right.
That's great. Good job, movie.
Good job. Well
no
done.
No points deducted there. I will deduct points because half the movie was me wondering who was watching that small child.
Yes.
I kept getting pulled out of the story because just so many times I'm like, but where's the child and who is watching her? And nobody had a good answer for me.
The child was also a place where the shittiness of the dialogue really suffered. That kid is cute as hell. Okay, she's very, very cute, and I generally don't have problems with hyper precocious children. Cool, and I buy that this child is a super precocious child. That makes sense. She's basically living on this lab, whatever. So she's smart for her age, et cetera, but she in particular was often used as here, I am a vessel for plot information in ways that were just oh no, don't do it.
I mean, the entire romance, quote unquote, was fed basically through the child.
Yes.
My mom just got divorced or something, and then she's like, my mom really likes you. Okay, child, you're doing all of the heavy lifting for this romance, and I don't think I like this.
I mean, well, okay, I don't like it in the context of this movie, but we have another movie that's Parent Trap style with this little girl trying to get the two of them together. That's a movie I might be slightly more interested in.
There's just all kinds of crazy shark shit happening in the background.
Yeah, some weird shark shenanigans in the background, but actually it's a rom-com where this cute little girl tries to get her marine biologist mother and the deep sea diver together.
It's like the openings of Guardians 2. There's this huge fight going on in the background, but really we're just all focused in on Groot doing Groot things.
Yep.
I'd be there
you
for
just
that.
fixed this movie by making it a shark-themed Parent Trap. I'm so in love.
That's correct. I stand by that fix.
I would watch that. I would be more apt to go to the theater to see that than I would be this movie.
I would 100% go see the shark-themed Parent Trap, to be clear.
Hollywood executives, please call us. We are ready.
You're willing to spend $130 million on this.
Unrelated to shark-themed Parent Trap, something else that I enjoyed was totally unnecessary, but the fact that I wrote this down and they didn't make the connection that international sales are why this movie worked. Obviously, clearly, I see that now, but I thoroughly enjoyed the Thai version of Hey Mickey. That was so delightful and good. I don't really know why this is happening, but I'm enjoying it. Thank you.
There were a few things that I actually really enjoyed in here. I thought a couple thrilling moments and sequences. The sequence where, from start to finish, where he has to swim out with the harpoon, shoot the thing, and then he gets reeled back in and the shark is chasing him. I thought that was thrilling. I was enjoying that. It was a really cool thing. It ended in a very sort of, scene's over kind of way, which bothered me. But still, there were moments in here that I thought were pretty good. And then the last, when the two of them are in what they called gliders at the end, playing back and forth with the Meg, I thought was an interesting set piece that I wanted to see more of. So it's I don't want to bang on this movie too much because I think there are some good ideas and there's some good stuff actually captured in the film.
But okay, so that interesting, this is the thing. Yes, I agree. There's a lot of it's in a number of different ways, it's almost there.
Yes.
It keeps getting close to doing something that is really good. Maybe, I don't know, really good. That's overstating. Let me walk that back. It keeps getting close to being a decent movie. Still maybe not a movie that's for me, but a movie that I could look at and be that's good, whatever. But so that set piece at the end with the two of them and the gliders, very cool. Yes, that's a good way to end it. The whole idea of using light to attract it was seeded. We the audience get that that's a thing. But then randomly in the middle of this, there's a helicopter explosion. Why? What? What? I just was just like, I don't understand why all of a sudden we're introducing helicopter collisions for no apparent reason. Like, I still don't understand why we introduced the helicopter crash and explosion into this movie.
I do believe something was either cut or they just didn't write it, but I think that was supposed to be news crews.
Yes.
Well,
okay, which I could be okay with.
Sure, yeah, I get why they were drawn to it, but like, what? But why? But what was like the movie purpose of this?
Because it's as though it gives helicopter pilots a bad name, really, is what it does.
Yes.
Because the people who reacted, who were looking away, were the camera people, not the pilots. The pilot is focused on the piloting. And so it's weird. And like, we never got a reaction. I don't think. I mean, if I watched it again, maybe there would be a reaction from the pilot. But you see the reaction from the camera people, not the pilot, and then they crash, and then everybody jumps off the boat, and I could feel Nicole's head shaking when that was, and I think we both held our hands up like, why did that happen?
Yeah, like, fine, some news crews are drawn to it, cool, like, they circle overhead and they film it, whatever, but like, why? Why?
The in-movie reason is that you have to keep getting people back into the water, right?
Sure.
Yes. Because otherwise you're like, oh shit, there's a big shark. We're not getting in that water. Movie over, right? Because they have to find some way to keep putting these people in the water.
The two main characters were in the water doing their glider thing.
No, and not enough. Not enough. Gotta up the... See, another thing that I think this movie almost, like, it was there, but then it did a little too much, is that it had too much of that, like, oh, we're in the water. Oh, no, okay, the shark got away. It was like up and down too many times.
Yes.
I think it went on too long. It could have taken one of those, like, near misses or whatever. It could have taken one or two of those out and been like better paced. But we did. We just kept getting in the water. Oh, for some reason the shark didn't, bite your head off this time. Back on a boat. In the water, back on the boat. And I thought it was a little too much. So by the time that the helicopter like crashes and everybody's back in the water, you're like, really? And that's supposed to be right. And that's supposed to be like the climax. That's like the biggest thing that's happening. You got all the people in the water, now the helicopters, and by that time you're so over it that you throw your hands up in the air in the middle of the theater, and not good.
Well, and again, if this movie had been more lunacy, and they'd really gone over the edge with it, and like Snakes on a Plane style, we're going for it, then maybe that would have been more appropriate and would have felt right. But in here, it's just like, oh Jesus, what happened? Is everybody
back
okay?
to Mari's original point about taking itself too seriously. Yes, totally.
I will say that I had similar, like, it sounds like our movie-going experiences from thousands of miles away were very similar in that I was having all of these reactions of like hands in the air or whatnot, but I will say that my theater on a Sunday afternoon or evening was full of more children than I imagined, and people were into it. Like, the lady next to me was squealing every time the shark hit like a glass. Like, she was like screaming out loud because she was being like so startled or whatnot, which also was extra confusing. Like, I was confused at the screen, I was confused at the patrons, and I was confused at this lady like yelling in my ear because she was that startled.
And also we also had a lot of children.
Yeah,
a confusing number of children. This is also like side, totally not the movie's problem. We had like a bunch of children with one adult, and that was like bad call. This is not the way you do children in a movie theater. But I
was a little offended by that, frankly. I didn't go to Toy Story 5.
Right.
It's like a monster movie. I don't like what.
And there was a little kid who couldn't stop talking, like, and she was embarrassed by it. Of course she was. And she tried and it failed. So I'm not mad at her, but I am like, adults out there, if you have little kids, you gotta be smarter about that.
Yeah. About your taking the kids to the theater.
Mari brings up a great point, though, that is something that I don't really relate to this, because our theater was fairly empty. At least as far as I could see. And so most of everything I heard was either me or Nicole shuffling around. Like, it was not really until we got to the, you got to put your head in there. When both of us were like, But I've had more conversations with a lot of people that it's like, okay, I don't like this movie for XYZ, and then I'll talk to them about what they liked about it. And it is so different. Like I'm specifically talking about Star Wars here because we've had a lot of my close friends and I've had arguments about The Last Jedi or the Solo movie or Rogue One. And I'm just beginning to understand how many different types of film goers there are. That like I am looking for a well-told story more than anything. And then there are people who are on the opposite end of that is like, no, I want to see great CG and I want to see explosions and I want to see blood and guts. And then there are people who are like, I just want to feel like I'm watching a Star Wars movie. And I imagine that just transcends all the way out. So there are people there that they just wanted to see, people in peril with a giant shark. And that was all they needed. And they aren't thinking about,
Very
that's just
popular
CG.
Desire.
Yeah. I mean, we all want to see some people in peril with sharks. It's fine.
At our heart of hearts, that is all we want.
Yeah. So, it's an interesting question I would love to dive deeper into, honestly, with friends and people I trust, that it's like, I don't understand why this movie made this much money or why that movie didn't make as much money. And, understanding that, like, despite the fact we feel like we're getting cut off into bubbles, those bubbles are even more fractioned by people who need to be told stories in different ways. And it's fascinating to me on a certain level.
I agree. Like, I also think that is very interesting. I don't know that I have anything particularly thoughtful to add about like the why of that. Like, it's something that I think about a little bit in terms of just like us making this podcast, that like the two of us hosting this podcast together have very similar opinions too. And so like there is an element of like, I don't know, every now and then when we come across something that we like, or just like, like when we're joined by a lot of our friends and there is this moment of like, I don't know, like there are people who I know feel radically different from us about a lot of the things that we talk about on here. And I don't know, man. I don't know.
I had that moment when I went on the Contenders podcast with Tobin Addington and Aislinn Addington, and it was like this great shock to my system to have somebody going, this movie, Aliens, that you love and have spent your entire life loving, is terrible. And I wasn't expecting it, like, because it just did not occur to me that anyone could not see how good this movie is. And I was legitimately, I was so naive. It was probably a beautiful picture. If there had been a camera to take a picture of my face when I realized, oh no, she really doesn't like this. That was sort of the opening of the door of like, well, what else do people not like that I like?
This is a very good episode, though, of The Contenders, which I will say, if you're not listening to the Contenders podcast, Tobin has been on this podcast, who's on our Sibling Stories episode. The Aliens episode is a good place to start with that podcast.
You'll get to listen to a completely flummoxed Nick.
Yes.
This is super great, too, because I actually was talking to Sam, who has also been on this podcast, and she's the co-creator of BookNet Fest, and she was just saying once again how much she enjoyed recording the live podcast episode that was at BookNet Fest, but specifically because it was an episode where I loved a thing and everybody else had different feelings. And so there is actually footage of my completely baffled face as people are bashing the 1995 BBC miniseries version of Pride and Prejudice. Like, there is photographic evidence of me just being like, what the fuck?
Wait a minute. Which side are you on?
She's pro BBC miniseries, obviously.
I'm on your
team. It's fine, but
I'm on team. It's fucking wonderful.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying.
This is. We did this episode already.
Okay, well, I needed to get my 2 cents in because this is important.
I accept this because they're the same as my 2 cents. So.
We have 4 cents now, Mari.
Well,
winning. I have one more pro thing, one thing that I liked about the movie that I just wanted to throw in here before we wrap up, but it's just that I don't know why I noticed. Well, I know why I know just this hashtag shallow, but Jason Statham in like perpetual sweatpants was my favorite thing ever. He just was wearing sweatpants a lot, and that was cool. But also he with like his like it was good. He had like his dive suit on, but then he would go diving without shoes. No flippers, just and I thought that was great. I don't know why, but it was my moment of happiness.
I mean, another thing that I like about this is he did a lot of his own stunts and his own swimming stunts and diving stunts because he's a natural in the water. And so I would imagine he might have had some input on that. Like, no, I think I'd go, I might go barefoot with something like this. I wanted to like a lot of things in this too. This is my last bit. There were moments that like in a different writer or director's hand, I would have liked that moment, but here it didn't work. And I'm thinking of when, and it's actually how it's built too, but when she's down in the plastic shark cage, and Jason Statham just jumps in after it, and then Rainn Wilson goes, "Hell yeah!" Like the idea of that in that moment is like, yeah, here's this person doing a badass thing, gonna go save somebody. But for some reason in this movie, it just felt awkward and out of place. And maybe that goes back to Mari's point of it's taking itself so seriously that you can't have those Marvel quippy things like that break the tension.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Like that. The movie needed to be less, take itself less seriously at other moments in order to have a moment like that is so clearly not self-serious. So like that moment just like didn't land in that way. Another very, very small thing that I really enjoyed, but when Rainn Wilson comes on and he tries to shake Ruby Rose's hand and she just like nods at him like, I see your hand there. Do you see me not shaking it? That was a very delightful moment that I really enjoyed.
It's especially good because just prior to that moment, Rainn Wilson like pulls the dad in for a hug, even though he was going for the handshake. It's like he goes extra, but then 1 second later, Ruby Rose is like denied any sort of contact. So amazing,
good quality. I have one last little gripe about the movie, and this is like, it comes from the same place that I think all of the problems do, of it not being entirely sure about what exactly it was trying to do. At a couple moments, they try to play the one black character like as like a meta joke on the way that one character is often stereotyped. But because like nothing else in this movie really does that, like really properly leans into that, like that clearly doesn't work. And so then he basically just ends up being like a stereotype over and over and over again in this way that I was like, ooh, yikes, guys.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable. I didn't like it because I like that actor a lot. I've seen him in other things, and he's a very, very talented actor. It bothered me also because it stuck out in a film that wasn't doing a lot of things that I would have expected a movie like this to do. For instance, the only body that's really ogled is
Jason Statham.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's great.
It's definitely not problematic in like a whole bunch of other ways that I kept expecting it to be. And so this was probably the most problematic thing that it does for the most part. But also it's just like, why? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I think it has two problematic things. That is one of them. It's a very Michael Bay Transformers. Like, this is a very base level thing that shouldn't be here, even in the Michael Bay movies, and yet it's showing up here. I'm not a fan. But the other thing is that, and this started to gripe me about midway through the film, was that only Jason Statham gets to save people.
Right.
Like that is upset because even in Jaws, it was a very small team of people. There were only 3 of them, and each one of them had to do their part.
Bing Bing Lee saves Jason Statham in the very end. The final saving is her.
That's true. Yeah. But beyond that, it's all him jumping into action and jumping into action. And I come from that era. So like I'm used to it, but I'm aware of it enough that I can watch it and go, it doesn't always have to be him. It doesn't have to be everyone else on board is a coward, and you have your one, the dude
one guy.
who gets, so that also is like a little dated to me. And you could, ramp that up if you weren't taking yourself so seriously. You could ramp it up, and he is ridiculous then at some point. But we didn't get to that point either.
Yeah,
it gets repetitive too in not only in what you're seeing, but I lost count of how many times people were like, "Wow, thank you, Jonas," like writing the dialogue, and I was just like, "Yeah, we get it. Thank you, Jonas.
Jonas is
like
great.
He saved somebody else, so it's fine."
Oh, Jonas.
Oh, Jonas.
Isn't there a biblical tale of Jonas or Jonah and the whale? Something?
Yeah, Jonah.
Jonah. Okay.
Isn't now I'm second guessing every single Sunday school I ever sat through. But Jonas is Jonah in Spanish.
Oh, okay.
Well, there you go.
There you go, people.
Sweet.
On that note,
always bringing it around to the Bible.
Classic Snark Squad Pod.
Thank you once again to Nicole for supporting the BookNet Fest Indiegogo and for choosing this for us to watch. I'm not sure if we answered your question, but I think it's some combination of curiosity and international markets that made this popular. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty accurate.
So the answer is really we have no answer. But thank you anyway, Nicole. Here. And thank you to Nick for joining us this week. And thank you to all of you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, we would truly appreciate it if you subscribe to us wherever you normally listen to podcasts, and if you rate and reviewed us on iTunes. If you're able to do so, please consider supporting this podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/SnarkSquad. We'd love to hear all of your thoughts on The Meg if you've seen it. And also, if you saw it, why did you go check it out? What was the draw there? We'd love to chat with you guys about all of that. There will be a post dedicated to this episode up on SnarkSquad.com. You can also sign up for our newsletter and join our Discord, where we are always talking about the podcast and other media things. You can also find us on Twitter at @Snark_Squad. You can find me at My Name is Marines.
I am at Sweeney Says.
I am at NG Jenkins or at Real Bad Pod if you would like to know more about that podcast.
Thank you as always to Stefan Chin for our fancy theme music, and we will be back in your ears next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.